Hello and welcome back to the podcast on the history of Georgian art. This is our second meeting, and as I promised earlier, we are going to discuss ancient Georgian art, which pretty much belongs to the field of archaeology. I have to admit I'm not an expert in archaeology at all, and we are going to have an outstanding guest today, archaeologist David Nasridashvili, who is at present working in Cambridge, at the University of Cambridge. He has been involved in lots of international projects abroad and in Georgia. His PhD research focuses on the Greek colonization of the Black Sea coast in the antique periods. He has been working with leading British universities such as Cambridge, Oxford, Durham, Edinburgh, and we are delighted to have you here with us today. And before I move on to the questions, in order to present his personality even better, I want to tell you something more personal. When we had these discussions about Georgia joining the EU, and when it was discussed at the European Parliament, we had lots of marches and rallies in Tbilisi, and it was a very kind of big thing for Georgians. Suddenly, a friend of mine from Cambridge sent me a picture of a Georgian flag hanging from the window on the King's Parade, right?
It's right
in front of King's College. So before I asked David whether he was in Cambridge or in Tbilisi, I already knew that it must have been him. So the reason why I'm telling you this is that he's not only he's a great scholar, but also he's a great patriot of his country and never misses an opportunity to display the treasures of his country whenever he gets a chance. So we are delighted to have you with us today. And I want to ask you a few questions. Could we begin from your own experience as an archaeologist, and can you tell us why did you choose to be an archaeologist? What moved you and what motivated you?
All right. So, thank you very much. I didn't know much about me at all, but yeah, to make some remarks, I have affiliation with the Institute of McDonald's in Cambridge University, and currently in the transition. My wife is also archaeologist, so we're having Katie Campbell. She's a fellow at King's College, so we're kind of archaeological family. And now, and I'm very pleased to be here. I know you, Tamar, probably maybe since 2008, 9, I kind of already knew you coming back and forth from UK to Georgia. And when I was undergrad student, you were already in Durham doing PhD. So I don't know, it has a maybe long history. So why I choose the archaeology? I don't know, actually I was 16 years old when I had to make a decision. It was like a long negotiation with my family, what I wanted to do, because as you mentioned, the problems of my country is really, really close to me. So I was I really wanted to do some military career. And absolutely freaked out my parents, especially my mom, because she wanted me to push towards to the musical education, because she was a musician and a violin player. So it was like a kind of roller coaster for her to be a musician and someone go to the military. And especially the country is not really stable situation, and it was before 2008, obviously, but probably she could tell that tensions could happen. So she was kind of trying to, and then we had maybe you want to do something else. And my father comes from village Nakalakevi, which is right next to Vardzia. So we are kind of surrounded by all of the archaeological sites. And my father used to work as an archaeologist, helping other expeditions, like in 70s, 80s, in our village area, I would say. And this was maybe you love archaeology, you like roaming a lot around your village, you're exploring some sites, and maybe you want to do something related to this, history And my mom was like, maybe you should go and be a lawyer. So it's like, no, I'm not gonna do so, as they say. But then I came up, why not? And archaeology. And I started archaeology. And I was very lucky that I started in 2006. It was kind of the ages of the reforms, and new professors arrived at the university, new approaches. So, and then right after we started, like, not me myself, but Professor Licelli started excavations on Gratiani in 2008 or 7, and I joined as an undergrad student. So it was kind of kickstarter for me. And then after that, I joined a lot of expedition within the Georgia. But another like a changing point for me was 2012, when the professor of Edinburgh University, Eberhard Zauber, was traveling to Georgia. And I was coming from Spain. I did exchange program and doing my master in the University of Cadiz. So I met this wonderful man, Eberhard Zauber, and I joined his. So he was planning actually to do some excavations, and I knew, and I googled his name, and I know that he was working quite a lot in Iran. And he was like, oh, I really have a passion to excavate Dariali Fort, because it's like one of the greatest outposts controlling this pass from the north steppes to going to the south of Caucasus, and all the empires, starting from the Romans, Sasanians, Arabs, and also local feudals. They always tried to control this point because it was benefiting economically, and it also was like strategic to stop anyone coming from the north. And it was like, and we explored Dariali Fort all around surroundings. And after a year and a half, I'm receiving email from him. It's like, oh, I got the European Research Council grant, which was like massive, I don't know, like a multi-million pounds, to do some excavations in Iran, Oman, like Azerbaijan, bit of the Azerbaijan as well, and Georgia. And we stepped in, so TCU became the partner of this project. And then it started that when I started really excavating all around these 4 countries I mentioned, and then we finished this project, and we have a massive like editorial book published about the Dariali excavations. And right after, then another opportunity came, and I joined another project with the Oxford University in Azerbaijan. I used to work as well in Turkmenistan in a Mary, city called like Ancient Mary, with the University of Oxford, and also it was the New York Metropolitan Museum in Turkmenistan. And then I started with Katie, because Katie started actually excavations in the south of Kazakhstan. My wife, future wife, but not currently my wife, but.
So you two met the expedition?
It's actually has a, no, we met in a cave, so I was in a cave.
Wow, that's
This is a story that we met the next. Yeah, sorry. I'm making the jokes that literally I was making the fire as the caveman, Neanderthal, and I was in the Varzia basically. So she came. It's actually it's a nice story, because it's like in a TCU we used to have a tradition, and it's like now 15 years we are hosting young archaeologist conference, like archaeological conference, and the head of the conference is a Professor Licelli, and another professor from the retired Professor Mike Vickers from Oxford, from Jesus College. This was like an idea to help the Georgians, including me, to improve their language skills and show what we are doing here. And Mike Vickers promised, okay, we will do this. I'll bring my students from Oxford. And there was and then I had it like 8-9 years, and Katie was the PhD student in 2017 when she came. And I was doing something to organize the setup, the presentation, projector, and she came in like, who you are? And I was like, oh, I'm Daughter. Like, oh, actually, I know you because my supervisor knows you well, Paul Walsford. He's now a professor at UCL, or lecturer. He's a senior lecturer. And he's my supervisor, and he told me that you go and meet Daughter, because he's going to join us in our project in Azerbaijan. So this is how it started, and now I'm working in the south of Kazakhstan. I used to work with the Ghent University with the Daniela De Simone in a wonderful project, the Dilgiris Mountains.
So that project finished already, it's over?
No, it continues, but so I switched to the other projects, in Chicago University project in Oman, I'm excavating with the Derek Kennett and other people. Seth Priestman, good friend of mine from Scotland, he lives in London. We're excavating the Asian port of Sohar, which is right next to the entrance of the Oman Sea, which connects the Persian Gulf. And it's very interesting because it's kind of, my friend Seth Priestman, I mentioned, he's a pottery specialist, and we used to find some potteries, and he was like, oh, this is a Chinese pottery, this is African pottery, and this is the pottery from Thailand, it's India. And really, if you look on the map, an ancient, like in medieval times, it's a medieval site, 10th, 12th century, this was more like a flourishing period for Sohar. And this was connecting like Mesopotamia, like the Baghdad, like which was Abbasid Empire and most like the biggest city probably, and all of the sudden, and the point of the art, all of the sudden, I think 10th century, this glazed pottery becoming very, very popular. So it's kind of the matter of the trading, like this fine pottery is coming from China, and like this also there is some Sasanian potteries, like Iranian Sasanian pottery, which were found in Japan. So like this is a massive exchange already starting in the early medievals, and like what we call like the Silk Roads. We know the Silk Roads probably. I don't know. I have a bit problem with this concept. Even my wife is employed by the Silk Road program, but like in Cambridge University, King's College. But like there is a really huge, intense trading going down to the south via and this is all trading routes.
Yes.
And now I guess that all the kind of intelligence in archaeology, especially in the medieval times and antiquity, like working in the Near East, like the south, like in Central Asia, I would say like Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and definitely I can tell that we have some influence coming from the Central Asia, like especially like Seljuks, and we could tell that there is some maybe influence also Seljuk arts as well. On some, I don't know, I'm not an expert on that, but I definitely can see some influence of the Seljuk architecture in South Caucasus architecture as well, especially this kind of Mukarnas and Squinches or wherever I think it might come from. But I'm not expert, maybe someone will criticize me. But yeah, and all sorts of these things I'm excavating, and now I'm coming to Georgia and kind of I can give the broad context. So anything happening really in Georgia, if I'll do, really can find something and fit it in a context. Absolutely. So this is how it's happened. So if you have anything, probably I talk too much.
No, thank you for sharing your experience. It's marvelous to hear that. Now, can we move on to Georgian archaeology, and can you guide us through some major excavations which took place in Georgia and which we owe to them for knowing our history?
Oh, it's a very good question. So I think professional archaeological history of Georgia is not as big maybe as the other countries. I would say that really it's around 1 century that is when they already the professional archaeologists are showing up. I'm saying that there is some excavations, even Ivan Javahishvili was interested in archaeology, or Eftimet Akaishvili, or other people, or Evgeny Tukhetsishvili, or other people, but their primary education or anything were they were historians. And in Soviet time or in the Russian Empire, the archaeology was a supportive.
Yes.
Supportive discipline for the history, rather than a separated one. And meanwhile, in the West, Western archaeology, it has a slightly different history. I would say that the ones I mentioned, I was having a chat with my friend and with Kate, and I told her that archaeology itself, as a discipline, is a product of the colonials.
Yeah.
Because the rich Westerners, they would go around, they were mostly military people, very well educated people, and they could afford to hire hundreds of people I mean, like could be in India or Mesopotamia and all the Near East or Iran, and they could hire a lot of people um, and do the massive excavations, like excavate like hectares, like even not like a few square meters.
Yeah.
And it's like it was a Western. And then from that, all of the archaeology, and those people would excavate very like shiny, posh things and would drag back to London or anywhere in West Europe, or it could be Germany or France or wherever. And it was kind of material of the show off and bringing some story next to this shiny pottery or artifact. And all of this sudden then started like a professional, like dividing the archaeology from this as a professional subject, like that someone made a topology, stratification, stratification, I mean, when you do excavations, you need some methodology, you need the stratigraphy
Yes,
to
that's
build,
right.
and this kind of, and so this is a story of the Western Europe. I would say that in Georgia in 19th century also was kind of this approach when they Russianized Georgian militants, I would say officers that would go around and they would do some kind of, I would say, the poor excavations because they could afford. They had like a military power, and there is like one Tsilosani, Nicholas Tsilosani. We don't know much about him, but he was like a Georgian Russian officer who could do some excavations in the South Caucasus, and he would publish like one letter or like articles saying that, oh, I did excavate it, because he was finding some bronze artifacts maybe, and I was like, and it was not really archaeology, it was more likely like a looting. And then tragically, I would say, then Soviet Union started, and I would say the 30s, 40s, and 50s was kind of like archaeology as a professional archaeology, history as a professional archaeologist starts here, and and then I would say after 60s, Georgian archaeology became independent from the Soviet archaeology. It was very nationalized because we had like very strong independent like a school of archaeology, and because I think in the Soviet Union there was like a big rival between the Petersburg and Moscow, and they were like mostly their excavations would go to excavate in Ukraine or Black Sea coast, and they were doing massive excavation all around the Russia as well, but they would go excavate in, let's say, in the Central Asia. But I would like barely remember any Russian scholars after 60s to come to excavate in Georgia.
Yes.
Maybe it was like but I would say like a ratio was 1 to 100. Someone could say that it was like a Russian archaeologist in 60s or 70s coming to Georgia to excavate. But the ratio between the Georgian archaeology was versus someone coming from the Moscow to excavate here was like 1 to 100. So the Georgia was like a completely independent. Still, I would say you had to obtain, like, if you wanted to depend like a PhD in archaeology or history, let's say, or material culture, you needed kind of proof, and it needed to be censored somewhere in the Moscow. So you had to translate your PhD, send it to the Moscow.
Yeah, that's
Someone
hard.
had to approve. It was like maybe it was a censored, and it could be like I don't know. It could be also influenced by the KGB, but someone had to check this narrative, and all the great and outstanding Georgian scholars even failed to defend the PhD because it was,
Really?
oh yeah, a few times. Then after second, third times they like,
So what did they actually censor? What did they not want to be there?
I don't know, probably it was the more likely to fit everything in the system of the Marx and Engels and to cite them enough and so build the structure of this ideology, probably. Or it could be something like they would check your background, maybe find your relatives living outside of the Soviet Union. Could be, and never, it could be as well, so I'm a bit mocking now the system, but like, it definitely was. Even like, I was, the other day, when I was submitting my PhD, it was over a year ago or a year and a half ago, and I was like printing out, and I all of a sudden bumped to Yulan Gagoshidze. And he said, like, you're lucky because, like, I almost failed the 3 times because I would send my PhD somewhere in Moscow and they would send me back, like, no, it's
And
nothing.
he's an outstanding.
And he's really, like,
famous
knowledge, like, and everyone,
great.
like, and everyone, you needed to, I don't know. And especially, like, to translate, and you don't know who is your, like a reviewer who is viewing, like, examiner. You don't know.
Yeah.
And you don't know. It's like a politically examining in it, like in towards the political direction, or it's like what you've written there.
Well,
So,
most probably,
yeah.
yes.
So this was definitely influenced, but generally, I would say that there was the independence. But in Georgian archaeology was also quite. Which I don't really sympathize in, was like I would say I call it like feudal archaeology, which was like the regions were divided by the also could be very good scholars, but there was like a division into the system. So like the one person excavating only one area and he's responsible for that another person. And really he had to play a lot of politics to get that and to excavate or have your own site or something like that. So there's like hierarchy system in Georgian archaeology was very, very strict. Now it's kind of fading away. It's still, I would say that something is remaining, but in this understanding, there was a very hierarchy system, as I told them, and you had to fit and play the the diplomacy and making a lot of diplomatic exercises to fit.
Being flexible to.
Be flexible and do something. So, and then absolutely it's changed in the 19th because it was like economical recession. Almost nothing was happening in Georgia at all. I would say there was like maybe 3 excavations, but nothing really major happened. And like another big kickstart was the commercial archaeology, which was boosted by the British petroleum, like this so-called Baku-Tbilisi Ceyhan pipeline.
Yes.
So because in England or in West Europe, there's quite a strict rules about the rescue archaeology. So whenever you go and you want to do some excavations, you need to hire archaeologists who will do some excavations, put the trenches, and examine the area to see what's underneath. It was also practiced in the Soviet Union as well to do the rescue archaeologists and commercial archaeologists, especially when they were building like dams like Zhinvali Dam or Sioni and Guri. There was some excavations, obviously, but and Tbilisi, it was also Tbilisi archaeological expedition who were responsible to explore the Diromi area, like very near from here. Yeah. So because there were the building blocks and underneath was archaeology to clean it up. And then BP hired a lot of archaeologists, almost all archaeologists, I think, in Georgia, maybe 90%. But
so maybe we are sitting on top of some.
It could be, because I think, it could be. This area was like at Tbilisi. It's called like a Treli Gorebi, as like a massive area. That is, and I think this area also somewhere here. We're close to the Nakulbakevi as well. There is some excavations done by the Rostom Abramishvili and Mikhail Abramishvili. So we definitely know that here some archaeology around. It's everywhere, probably in Georgia. You can't really walk maybe 3-4 kilometers without finding any archaeological site. Yeah. So, and then the British Petroleum Day, this was massive boost. But the problem is in the Georgian archaeology, because now I work with a lot of Western archaeologists. In the 70s, when it was, and also in the Soviet Union, when it was like a economy more or less was functioning, and commercial archaeology was existing, there was not any system recording the excavations. Like I would say, there was like 2 maybe Russian scholars, Artsikhovsky, who basically the first kind of in 1956, I think he published the book Osnovy Archaeology, which is basically introduction of archaeology, where he tried to say that we should excavate on that system. And then there was his student Avdusin, who in 1982 published another kind of guideline methodology, like we should do this way, because when you're excavating, it's so much subjective archaeology. And it's really, we need the good excavators who would understand stratigraphy and etc. Yes. And it's very subjective. So we have to find some systems that what you're thinking, it must be understood by me or anyone else in archaeology. So we need kind of the building up the narrative which will be understood by everyone. And meanwhile, in the UK, they created like a so-called MOLA system, which was done by the Museum of the London, and Harris system, matrix system, etc., single context and wherever recording. So we know what we call the context, what we call the layer, what we call this, that, and how to record. So it's all understandable. And if you in Britain, let's say, excavate, because it's also economy was functioning in Britain, and they were finding a lot of Roman villas or I don't know, all the Celtic sites, or I have no idea, but like that. And they were like, oh, we need in 70s, they said, oh, we need something systematic. We need to create something that we will record all these sites in the same way. Yeah. And now it's still, of course, there is a few additions after that, published after 70s, maybe 4 or 5 times it was changed. But I know that if someone in Britain excavates, after a few years, if I go back and I go to the documentation, I know what this, I don't know who excavate archaeologists then did. And in Georgia, such a system absolutely doesn't exist. So everyone has their own school, like let's say, and especially I said like the feudalism, Georgian archaeology. I can even like if you polar the text, I don't know the name of the archaeological site or anything, I can guess, oh, this was in Kakheti, and this is in, let's say, in Poti area, because I know that there's 2 different schools and 2 different systems of the excavations. Yeah. So this was the major challenge of the Georgian.
But is it not possible to learn from our Western colleagues, just like you do now?
Of course, yeah.
Bring in the system.
Now we go to the negative part. So in the Western systems, there is also 2 different systems. I would say like a German school, and then another like the British school. So there is a German excavations also in Georgia, especially Neolithic sites and chemocalculi. They're very like active. They used to be. And then we have the Canadians working on the Grape project, where they found the remains of the wine, maybe a few decades, like 10, 12 years ago. And the problem, and yes, the good thing is that Georgian students are going and mostly they're joining. Yeah. But the problem is that this needs the generational changing.
Yes.
I kind of, with my colleagues who are my friends as well, we agreed that we need to change the system because it's not working and it's not going to work. Another very bad system, I would say. I mentioned the commercial, like a rescue archaeology, like when something is built, like the pipeline, which it could be like the 300-kilometer length, so you will definitely hit a lot of archaeology. It's a massive excavations. This is another, but now in archaeology, there is a different direction. Yeah, if we do the research.
Yes.
I kind of gave up the commercial archaeology maybe 6-7 years ago, and now I'm trying to always work like in more in scientific research projects. And there we have a targeting archaeology, like targeting the point. So we would do like the trench 5 by 5 meter, 3 by 3 meters, and we will try to extract as much as is possible from this 3 by 3 trench. Do all the analysis, radiocarbon dates, palynology, like pollen studies, I don't know, botany, like archaeozoological studies for every bone to measure and know what the species were around, and anything like environmental studies, etc. And this is like a small scale archaeologist, and the large scales, of course, you can't really deal with this. But yeah, so the problem also, we need to slow down in terms of the excavations to also the deal with the materials which is already extracted. And we have this material sitting in somewhere in the labs, and they were published, no one went through the archives. Some of the archaeological sites were poorly published.
Yes.
And this is materials sitting somewhere and needs to re-excavate.
Yes, for some reason in Georgian art history, almost, well, not all people, but most of the Georgian art historians go to medieval architecture, medieval painting, but this is kind of less studied area, the pre-Christian Georgian art and these artifacts which are found from archaeological excavations. For some reason, and I wonder, when you said earlier about the Soviet censoring these academic works, I wonder if one of the reasons could have been that because these artifacts show a lot of influence of Greco-Roman art or other artistic traditions, it kind of shows that Georgia was, even at a very early stage of its existence, in relationship with the outer world. I wonder if the Soviets actually did not quite like this. They were very proud of everything Georgian as their own, of course, but at the same time, they didn't really want us to be part of the bigger world, did they? What do you think about that?
Oh, wow. A very complex
It may be
question.
just me,
No, it's a very complex one. Of course, we are very close to I would say, the early civilizations. So, like, if you take a map and look like Mesopotamia or Iran and even Egypt, like, you can see that, like, could be 1,000 kilometers, 900 kilometers, 800 kilometers. And in archaeology, there is a concept, like goods are moving, people are exchanging. They know that they're exchanging, and then time to time you find something like in Gora, which is like 40 kilometers from here, there is the stems, like sealing stems, which are the end of the third millennium, the Jevdet Nasri stems or something. It's like from Mesopotamia, like very early connections. And even if someone goes deeper, like fourth millennium, fifth millennium, you can find maybe like even maybe Neolithic period. You can also find some, I don't know, the obsidian, like which is probably harvested or taken from the quarries of Chavacheti or Armenia, and you can tell that this obsidian is traveling like down here, because naturally in Kartli or the lower and Great Caucasus you don't have obsidian, so you need to go, and you will find that those obsidians are spread hundreds of kilometers. So it's already you know that people are moving, they're exchanging, and of course there is some contacts. I don't know, like another thing about the art history and the archaeologists and to publish. So I think archaeologists are quite busy, concentrate, or in Georgia generally I'm speaking, to excavate something, and most of the energy were going to excavations rather than to do them than a good research. Obviously, we have a lot of like the materials. I don't know, and even like they were using this reality goblet, like the silver goblet. I don't know much about that. Yeah, this was somewhere here. Yeah, there is an argument where was this made. Yeah, we definitely this kind of goblet. It's also
Let's show.
Quite a. I'm not expert at all like of this, and I should.
We may discuss this.
Yeah. We have another one was found in Karashamp in Armenia. It's almost similar. It has but the stylistically, and a lot of are published, but I think it's a major problem, maybe communication of the art historians and archaeologists. So we need to collaborate. And also, I have this impression that Georgian art history is more closer to the studying just the Christian architecture, because I think it's also not the problem of the nationalism, but it's come from the nationalism as well, because somehow the Georgian identity was bound, and it's bound to Christianity, and all the resources were going to the Christianity. So you would study Christian architecture, because we have to, and it's not proper. It's happening in Armenia. Yeah. The more art historians, I would say, would be concentrating on the Armenian architecture rather than probably pre-Armenian, pre-Christian, and also.
Well, I'm personally very proud of our ancient roots, not just the medieval architecture, but that ancient. I think it carries our identity not less than Christian art. I think you can even find more in there.
Yeah, I think, and another thing, it's very, very dangerous to, and I'm
Yes,
trying
I
to
know what you mean.
avoid and also drain
Yes.
archaeology all from all the like the political situation because, as I mentioned, I'm working in quite a lot of countries where any findings could be very sensitive for the
Yes,
locals, or and always like providing the correct information is very, very, very important. But like the Georgian as a state formed here, obviously, and we have a very long tradition. I don't know, the archaeology in Georgia generally is a great. We have to find more, and there is a more, I would say, more questions in Georgian archaeology, maybe also in art history, than answers, and it's in every like I don't know. So I should say that I don't really think that archaeology is a part of the humanities. It's somewhere between the applied. I, so generally, I think that that we have to work more to know about the archaeology in Georgia generally, and we probably have to invest more in archaeology. I would say not to invest, make the people to do the archaeology properly, and even art history, because the currently politics in Georgia, which I kind of do not agree, is awful. And I'll be very, no, I will be very
I join
straight.
you.
I will be very straightforward in that case, and we have to make the system. We have to make and like other people that archaeology is a part of our cultural heritage.
Yes.
The rescue archaeologists must have been done properly according to systems, and normally I know this kind of clashes are also in the Western countries when some investor came, he wants to develop some area, but you need to have a proof archaeological report what's going on your land. Yes, before building anything, you need to professional eye by the archaeologists who will do some test pits, and yeah, but investors this liberal economy doesn't like obviously this kind, because you have to slow down, you have to pay the wages.
Well, I believe in the West it's taken more seriously, but how is it here? Do they actually take it seriously, these archaeological concerns? Or
I
maybe
thought yes, according to Georgian the legislation of the cultural heritage, which is the last edition is the 2007. Not much changed, and I think this is not a perfect, and this absolutely needs to be changed, or at least improved. So I think that mostly any big investors are having very good connections with the government or any ruling party or anything. So basically, the archaeologist has to deal with the investor who has the interest to deal up with everything, and the mediator who should be the government. They're not mediating the archaeologist versus cultural heritage versus investors, because there is they are basically very much interconnected, and they're using their influence. So maybe to just write on the report, they will sponsor some excavations very briefly and probably for 2 weeks, 1 week or something, but there's no the government is basically always on the investor's side, so rather than to the archaeological side or the cultural heritage, that's sadly. And also I have to say, maybe sometimes I was a part of this kind of system as well, but now I'm thinking, after collaborating mostly in the West and thinking about this very quietly or loudly, I'm thinking that the Georgian cultural Ministry of the Culture, and underneath we have the what's it called, agency called Cultural Heritage Agency. They must be the mediating, and they must be more defensive to archaeology rather than to anyone, and even the government, they are.
But are they? They must be.
No, of course not. They are building this the roads or anything.
Yes.
It's almost like the road department almost has so-called like a carte blanche. They wouldn't like wouldn't care about anything. There is no any fines, or it's quite conditional. So it's maybe could be another podcast, and you should invite more professional in that to speak about.
Now, you mentioned earlier a few times Gragliani Hill
Okay,
excavations.
Oh.
Actually, I did follow it in the beginning, but then I somehow lost the track. I don't know what's going on there. How did it develop? And can you tell us all about it from the beginning and how did it go?
So it was a rescue archaeology, back in 2008, when they did a highway cut through, and the two terraces basically is gone. We know, there is a strategically very important road, and also we didn't know much about this point about the Gragliani at all, and it's now at the part of the Gragliani Gora is gone because of maybe the tenth of the site, because it's a massive highway it's cutting through. But there is still some areas, I think the north and south still remaining of the site, and TCU students and Professor Licelli, they are doing excavation. So I think I will leave this topic to Professor Licelli, and maybe you will have another candidate to come and speak about the Gragliani Gora.
What did they find there, and why was it important? Just to give an opinion.
First of all, as an archaeologist, I would say that it's the greatest site in terms as a puzzle. We archaeologists, we like the puzzle, especially the puzzle difficulties of the excavations. The first of all, this is the hill sloping down to the south, and there is at least 12, 14, I don't know, we can argue about that, but it's not, in this case it's not important, maybe 14 different time periods, There is some layers, even maybe could be a Stone Age or Neolithic age. And obviously because of the raining and rain, all the materials are mixed together. And to find some in situ layers and to kind of uncover this puzzle and excavate it properly, and as the excavations, I don't know, it's like a quiz or something to solve. And it's on the field. So this is kind of greatest, as the opportunity to excavate, I would say this is greatest. And then importance, as I told you, I think it has the greatest, late Bronze Age period remains. It has the first millennium BC, there's this inscription.
Is it an inscription? I mean, has it been proved that it's an inscription? Because some
there is obviously there is not that. I was saying I would think that it needs to be more studies.
Yes.
I have my own idea about that. What it could be.
Can you tell us?
No, obviously.
Okay then.
It would be harsh for me to say, but what I believe, someone who did this, he has seen the inscription. The thing is, he has seen the inscription, and I think anyone who made this one, he has seen other inscriptions. At least he tried to copy it. I don't know about, because this is a very, I have to tell this story. I was excavating in the central of Azerbaijan with the Oxford University, and we found the glazed pottery. And the glazed pottery, which had the Arabic inscription, obvious Arabic inscriptions. And there were a few people, I'm not speaking Arabic, maybe very basic level, I probably can read. I can read some of Arabic.
That is amazing.
Yeah, but I could tell I was looking on that, and I was like, it's not makes any sense. It's it's definitely Arabic, but it's not making sense. And then the other who was more advanced in Arabic was he tried to read something, and then we realized that this is so-called pseudo inscription. Basically, the crafts who are making the glazed potteries, they don't know, but they're trying to imitate something.
I see. Yes.
The minimum what I think, minimum what I like, the lowest I think about the Gragliani inscription is someone trying to imitate. Because to see that it's an inscription, probably there must be others. I'm pretty sure if you excavate more, you will find more, because we have a lot of 10th century BC layers there. So minimum what I think that someone who made that had the opportunity to see
Yes,
the other inscriptions.
that still shows that there was a connection with that world.
Obviously, like
could see.
the puzzle, another puzzle in between them. So we have this inscription like a Gragliani. There is the other formations, and also it's very early stage for the Aramaic inscriptions. But so I think currently Professor Licelli thinks that it's related to the Aramaic inscription, which I agree, because in between the Aramaic world and Georgia we have like Urartians, yeah, or other. There is the different systems, the cuneiforms they're using, and in Georgia we don't have any examples of the cuneiforms. Like we don't have any. There are some Urartian inscriptions in Georgian National Museum, which was excavated during the Imperial Russia in Armenia or territory of Turkey, and they would bring it because the center was Tbilisi, and they were still sitting in the museum of in Tbilisi. But we don't have any examples like Urartian so far. It could be something, sure. So what I'm saying is that there is a glitch between the like Aramaic and this world to connect it. Obviously, there could be some connections.
Yes. Okay.
And people were probably traveling. Some as the goods are traveling. Who knows? Maybe the man or woman was hired as a mercenary and maybe went. It's also I'm mocking myself, but I think someone who made this at least has seen the other inscriptions at least. And if we will find more examples, I will say that it's definitely there is a system. In Gragliani, we definitely know that there are the system. They actually very good presentation last year, December. Professor Licelli gave into the in Cambridge on the Silk Road programs about the Gragliani. What we know there is this kind of system. So what's the system I mean? We have a measuring stones, scale stones, so basically which has a ratio in between them. So we know that there is kind of systems that people are training. Why you need the scales, scaling weights and the stones to make some trades or exchange or measure something like proportions at least. So this is already like one step above, yeah, in terms of, we have a ceilings, and ceilings are not it's not just a necklace or a bracelet or something to put, and it's a kind of term of the aesthetics.
Yes.
The ceiling, what does that mean? You stand, and it's like, it means that you're legitimating some product. We don't know, we don't see any evidence that any product was sealed, but it could be a bread. People were baking the bread, and someone put the seal, it's stamped, because we have a stamp. So this is also, it shows some tradition of the system. So definitely in that direction, it won't be so surprising that someone doing that have a connection, seeing the inscriptions or knowing some system, or I don't know. Like it's very difficult so far. I need more. I would say I would need more facts to grasp and do some more better interpretations. But I think in terms of that, it's a very important site, and it has the connections with Achaemenid world before any worlds were like any civilizations in the Near East. The end of the Gragliani hill is somewhere in the 2nd century BC, and then it's kind of bits of it reactivates again in early medieval times in top of the hill, but then nothing is happening there. So these all layers are like are there. Another thing, archaeologically, what's important on Gragliani, in most of the times, as I told you, like there is you need to do some excavations, and it's a kind of puzzle and very difficult. Most of the dwellings or houses we're excavating, they are burnt. So what that means that there is some event happened, and all the fire, and it's all collapsed, and all the materials are naturally sealed. So anything you find together, so let's say if you did the radiocarbon dates or wherever, typological or typological dating or wherever, you find this book, the glass, the phone, wherever notes, you know that, oh, these people in this house, like same period, same time, they were using those so this all
Yeah,
together,
amazing.
and you can say like, oh, this is like a basically in all one chronological frame,
Yeah.
and then you know that, oh, people this class and this book were used already. I mean, now I'm trying to simplify, but mostly there is the pottery, so you know that these type of the pottery were spread 8th century BC because I dated this, and this that arrowhead wherever you can find this all together,
Yes.
and this is a very
So
important.
these artifacts show a lot about how those people lived, who lived long before us, in that, this area or the other. But can you single out any special artifact which you think that is the greatest discovery for Georgian archaeology? Is there anything like that?
Oh, I don't know. It's very difficult. I don't
Or
know.
there may be several or many, not just
Ethics
one.
in archaeology
That's
doesn't
both-
allow me to.
really?
Everything is interesting.
Yes, that's
Yeah, sometimes I'm like, and I was when I was a
But there
lecturer at
must be
Tbilisi State
something-
University, I was trying to study students. Everything is very important. All
Yes,
the
I
artifacts
believe
is
so.
very.
But there must be something that you're more biased to. I know biased is not a good thing, but
Of course, I'm biased. Everyone is a bias, but like
more favorite of yours.
my favorite findings. Ooh. I probably will send this.
It doesn't matter whether it's art or bones or whatever it is. It's totally.
It was like first of the things when I was in expedition, someone made the toast, and you know that the Georgian toast is very good.
Yes.
So there is the one thing in the Iron Age. In Iron Age, there was belts, bronze belts,
Yes.
spread all over the Caucasus.
Yes, amazing.
South Caucasus,
Yeah.
generally, Armenia, Georgia. There's a few examples, I think, in Armenia.
wonder
And also,
if there is.
none of them. It's not.
Okay,
It's not really known fact. But why I'm telling it's a really I really like this artifact, an Iron Age, like maybe eight. Sorry, I'm a bit bad with the maths, but like around Christianity, maybe 1,000 years before the Christianity or 800 years before the Christianity. And there is a spread like the pelts, which is called I think the people in Georgia before were skinnier than me. So there is a belt that covering a bit of the belly, and they have this like a small relief incised decorations. There is a few moments are there. The first, mostly it's like a geometric figures. It could be triangles. It could be like whatever, squares or maybe wavy things and lines. And it's just a simple geometry. I would call. Another is also quite spread is a hunting thing.
Yes.
And the third one is very different. In the Georgia, what it was found in Tscheta is the two men, probably, sorry, we don't know if they're men or not, they definitely humans have an anthropomorphic like figure, but they have faces or heads of the rooster. And they are having the party. They are basically holding the glasses and making the toast to each other. So,
Gosh, that's so interesting.
so basically, even like probably this size of the cups, they are like making the toast and they are kind of making the toast. And it has a very interesting. It's all the fragments, so it's all described that how they went for hunting or something like that. Then how they put the Georgian table. Even you can tell there's a shotispuris, there is a tsavadi or wherever, maybe hashlama, really, and they are holding. And then the most important, at the end, this ends, these two men are drunk getting home back because it's a sunset. So this is all, like I would say that
telling the story.
it's a telling the story. So this is I would say that we are the most hedonist country in Georgia, that we have at least 3,000 years tradition of being joy
And nice food.
and nice food, toasting to each other, and it is really great. I don't know even we don't know even if it's locally made. It's published by the Higasheri actually. I forgot her name, but it's very like a thin book. She collected all this. It's called the Iron Age Art History. Oh, that's a good point. That's a weird doing so. So it's a thin book, but I think it's a very, very important. And someone made this toast in like in archaeology. That like for our 3,000 at least 3,000 years of happiness and like a drinking and the drinking tradition. So I really like this artifact. And yeah, I can say.
Photo, do you?
No, I don't have a photo. I have a book somewhere, and I have definitely the pictures.
Oh, good. Then
And probably like it's.
share it.
Yeah, we can share maybe. So yeah, I like this artifact. I'm not biased. I'm biased because I like this artifact very much. And there is a lot of artifacts you can like, but this is one special.
Yes. Now let's move on to the final question.
All right.
Can you tell us what are the present problems and challenges for Georgian archaeology, and how do you see the prospect of future development and future plans, and what can be done for it to survive and to go on, carry on?
It's going slowly, very slowly. I hope the tense political situation, which has also influenced archaeology, will be soon over, and I think the generation which has to come, they will come. I don't think that it would be me, but someone who already had some Western education. There are a few, because in Georgian archaeology, honestly, we have a big gap, generational gap, because of the 19th recession. So it's like no archaeologists who qualified, or they could qualify, like they probably had undergrad or a master degree, or even could be a PhD, but like remaining in archaeology in those years was very difficult. So in Georgian archaeology is like a generation under 35 and generation above the 60 or something like that.
Yes,
And I think the new generation which has a more common ground, and we can speak to each other, and this because also the problem is as well in the Soviet feudal archaeology, what I call, there was like a lot of understream in between them, and there was kind of fights or something like that. I don't know. Not like generally like fights, but it's intrigues
Disagreement.
and disagreement. Let's see. Sorry, I'm very harsh in terms of the yeah. But in new generation, I think has a chance to speak to each other, makes a system of archaeology, try to save as much as possible in cultural heritage, publish more not in the Georgian, because the situation is slightly changed now. Yes, like I mean the situation changed. You need to publish in like the good journals, like which has the impact factors and so on. You know, like because even if you write in Georgian, how many archaeologists are there? 50, 60. So it's kind of local, very local. So we need to collaborate more. We need to expand our knowledge. And always I'm trying to take my former students who are now my friends in different expedition. Like whenever I go, that's like one of the conditions I have. Like I'm joining your expedition, your project, but could you please take it to 3 students from Georgia? And sorry, in terms of that, I'm also very biased, and I'm always taking students from TCU, from Georgian State University. But now we're starting excavations again in Kazakhstan, in South Kazakhstan, where the head of the project is my wife, Katie, and we're taking 3 students from Tbilisi. This year in January, February, we had a expedition in Oman, and there were students in total, maybe within the 3-4 years, maybe 5 students, and etc. Yeah, I think it will help. This needs the generational changing. The second, what it needs the politically to try to I don't know. The pressure coming from the politics also needs to be.
Yes, we definitely need to see some major changes in that.
Yeah, well, one day we're gonna change.
Yes, let's hope.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
Thank you very, very much for such an interesting and inspiring talk.
Thank you very much for having me. It's
you for being
my
with us.
first English podcast, my second podcast, but this is the first English one, and I hope I didn't mess it up. And thank you to
Not
the
at
crew.
all. I'm sure our viewers will like it, enjoy it very much. And if you do enjoy watching us, please do subscribe to our channel.
I
And we
recommend
shall-
as well to subscribe to the channel.
Yes, please do. We shall meet again next Tuesday and we shall talk about medieval Georgian architecture.
Oh,
Thank you very, very much. Bye for now.
thank you.